when I first went to Vietnam, I was I was assigned to the 57th Assault Helicopter Company at Kontum. It's up in the highlands. And our battalion was the 52nd Combat Aviation Battalion at Pleiku, and it was huge. It had like, 3 or 4 assault helicopter companies. It had a Cobra company, a heavy lift company, and with Chinooks and Sky Cranes and that kind of stuff. It was a big aviation battalion up there at Pleiku. So, but I started out with the 1st Aviation Lift Platoon. With the first platoon in my company, and flying slicks. Those are they're called slicks because they didn't have any guns or anything, but we did have, of course, 2 M60 machine guns. We had door gunners, but they were called slicks, and they're the ones that went in and landed and picked up troops and all that kind of stuff. And I was in that first platoon for 2 months, and then I got called to the CO's office, and he said, I want you to be in the gunship platoon, And I said, I don't want to do that. Those guys get shot at all the time, And he said, where you're going? I said, well, okay, So, and I turned out being a pretty decent gunship pilot for my next 10 months. And that's how I started. That's what I did in Vietnam, was I flew a Charlie model gunship. And of course, we had the 2 door gunners, 2 M60 machine guns. One of our configurations was 2 miniguns and 14 2.75 rockets. And then one we called the Hog. It had 2 19 rocket pods on it with no miniguns. The first time I ever got shot at, I was flying with my platoon leader, Captain George Croy. He's retired to the Netherlands now. We got a call. We heard some guys were on trouble on top of a mountain in Laos, and they were weathered in, and there's clouds all around them. They couldn't get any what we call TAC air, is the bigger it's the A1E sky bombers and the F4s and that kind of thing. They couldn't get any TAC air because of the weather. And the helicopter unit was having a hard time getting to them just because the mountaintop was weathered in, So George and I go on over there, and lo and behold, we end up working our way down through the clouds and end up on top of this little mountain. And there's a rock there, and then there's a cliff, like 300-foot drop off to one side. And our good guys, they're special forces, Green Berets, we threw a ladder at them. We had a aluminum ladder type thing. They were climbing up that ladder. They were shooting, throwing hand grenades, and the door gunner on that side was just giving it hell. And I was over in the right seat, and wasn't much for me to do. And then bad guys start coming up the hill in front of us, shooting at us. And a couple come in through, rounds coming through the windshield over on the pilot side, Well, what have I got? I'm sitting there with my little trusty 38 that's got a little walnut grip on it and stuff. So I'm going to join the fracas here, and I hold my 38 out the window, and I'm shooting at the bad guys out in front of us. And the last time I talked to George, he still thought that was just hilarious. He said, they're already shooting out our windshield. Why didn't you shoot through our windshield? You were concerned that you were going to hurt our aircraft, but you were holding your little 38 out the window and shooting at the bad guys. And then when the good guys, when the team finally all got on board, we didn't even pull the ladder on. We just rolled off the side of that cliff, and we caught like 3 more rounds in the belly as we were rolling off. But the funny thing about that whole thing, and I'm still remembering back to it, is my thought during that whole thing was, well, I wasn't terrified. I was conscious of what was going on and the jeopardy we're in. But you know what my thought was? This is going to be a long year. I'd only been there three weeks when this happened. Then I tell my kids there's many times as a helicopter pilot that the difference in me sitting here and talking to you and not being here is just a matter of inches or second, or just less than a second sometimes of me sitting here talking to you. And one of those was when I was still in the slicks, they had a special forces team that managed to get themselves into an NBA fuel dump over in Laos, right in the middle of it. And we had to go get them. And George and I were the second ship in, so they knew we were coming. But where they were at, they were in what we call a hover hole. And it's hard to describe, but the triple canopy jungle, it's actually at midday, it's dark down on the ground in a triple canopy jungle. That's how thick the vegetation is and stuff. Well, these guys were down in what we call a hover hole. And they knew George and I were coming. So we had slowed down and we're on short final to the hover hole. And lo and behold, we flew straight over a twin 51 caliber anti-aircraft gun. And I mean, I could see them, you know, and boom, boom, boom. Boy, they laced us. And we caught 3 right behind the seats and one in our rotor blade. And just after that happened, a Cobra that's covering, that place just disappeared. They put a couple rockets on and went, oh, well, don't have to worry about them when we're coming back out. But I was telling you about the seconds. There was 3 rounds right behind our seat that came all the way through the Huey, 51 caliber. A half a second earlier, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. It killed me. One of those bullets, it came right behind my seat, and it would have killed me, you know.